Do you feel powerless, unseen, unheard, unvalued? Are you living an inauthentic life driven by the expectations and demands of others? A life dictated by your past, your wounds, your scars? Well, it's time to break free. Join Ellie Shefi and her special guests as they guide you on a journey to leave the chains of your past behind and step into a life of your own design. Welcome to You Are Not Your Scars. Here is your host, Ellie.
Hello and welcome. Today's guest is a powerhouse of wisdom, creativity, and authenticity who has been there and done that. In her early days, she built one of publishing's first billion-dollar brands, the Chicken Soup for the Soul empire. A multiple #1 New York Times bestselling author herself, she currently serves as the president of the Canfield Training Group, chief visionary officer at Goal Friends, and she is the creator of Permission Granted. A true champion of women, she mentors and empowers women to show up more boldly and authentically in their businesses, their communities, and their lives so that they can live life freely on their own terms. Please welcome the incomparable Patty Aubery.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Now, wow, permission granted. That is such a powerful statement. Where did that come from? And when you hear the words permission granted, what does that mean to you?
It just reminds me every day that the only person that can give me permission to do anything is myself. And that's kind of where it came from. I kept waiting for people. And I sort of grew up in a man's world and kept waiting for all these men to say, hey, you should do this and you should do that. And nobody was saying that. They were just letting me do what I was doing. And I finally realized, wow, no one's going to invite me into the room unless I invite myself into the room. So I had to give myself permission to show up and speak up and be seen. And hence Permission Granted was born.
Amazing. So you mentioned being in this man's world. Tell us a little bit more about that and what it was like to be a young female in a man's world, trying to be seen and heard and taken seriously.
Well, it wasn't that I wasn't being seen and heard and taken seriously. I mean, after I was the president of Chicken Soup for the Soul for 18 years and published 230 books and had 15 New York Times bestsellers of my own, but I wasn't owning it. I probably at the time, if I'd been a little bit older, I'm sure if I'd been a man, I might have been offered more, but I probably would have asked for more too. And I think at that time in my life, I felt lucky to have what I had. And I didn't give myself permission to take the credit that I deserved to give myself. It wasn't as though I was living in some chauvinistic world, because I wasn't. I just happened to be working with two amazing guys who were so busy. They were thinking about bigger picture than thinking about, wow, does Patty need anything? And I think a lot of women are waiting around for other people to save them or to ask them to be more involved. And it really, I think it's in our DNA that we're always we put ourselves behind the scenes as the supporter and the nurturer. And I did that a lot, but I also felt very comfortable doing that. And so I didn't get a lot of people trying to stretch me out of that comfort zone. I did it well. I ran the business side for the most part. So when it was time to do my own books and go on television and do a book tour and things like that, it was very uncomfortable actually. And it felt very awkward. And at the time when people would say, what do you do? I would say, nothing. I didn't own I'm a New York Times bestselling author. I always sort of thought it wasn't about me. It was more about the guys in the brand. And so after so many years, I realized, wait a second, I got to 35, then 40, then 4. I would, hold on a minute. There's more to this story. I built this from the ground up. So it was a long process of doing that. And it wasn't until really my mom died in 2012. And she was on her deathbed and said to me, promise me that you will step out from behind the scenes and take credit, because the three of you really did build this together and people need to know who you are. I didn't raise a daughter to be invisible.
Wow. What a powerful turning point, right? When your mother, as she's passing, is really asking you to step into your full power, into your full visibility, into your glory and your essence, and show up in the world as you. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you have taken her words to heart and really honored them, really honored her request. And I know that she is proud. So as you were really kind of stepping into this next phase of your journey, where you're going from behind the scenes to really out in front and into your own, tell us what initially really fueled your fire. What was your why beyond doing it for your mom? What was your why for doing it for you at that point?
Well, I think in the beginning, it really was her that was my why. That's what gave me the strength and the courage to do it, because it's nerve-wracking, for a lot of us, especially in the world of transformation. I was playing the comparison game, and anybody that ever plays that never wins, right? We're never above, we're either even or below. And so I was constantly comparing myself and staying behind it and kind of showing up a little bit and then stepping back and showing up a little bit and stepping back was comfortable, because I was afraid, well, what if I really show up fully and then I'm not accepted, or I make a mistake, or at that time, or I forget my lines, I mean, just what, I was a C student. Come on, what am I supposed to do? I've been working with this genius from Harvard. I'm never going to cut that. It's like everything in your head goes through your head. And I realized that, I started Chicken Soup with Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen when I was 25. And I really had one mentor that was a woman that actually was working with us in the very beginning, and she was really solid. And then she kind of moved on, and I didn't have a lot of women to look to. I didn't know anybody else to say, hey, how do you navigate this? I had a lot of men that were my mentors, and they still are to this day. They're amazing. And they remind me that I'm amazing, which is really great. But what I found was that if I had someone saying, come on, you can do this, you're good enough, all the things that I had done on the other side for the men that I've been working with and cheerleading them on, I sort of needed my own cheerleading squad. So I thought, I've been cheerleading Chicken Soup for the Soul for all these years. We sold the brand, and I think it's time for me to become the cheerleader for all the other women in the world that want to step up and be seen. And so for me, I love doing that. That's what fuels me, whether you're 25 or 35 or 45 or 55. I spent the last 4 decades going through those processes of figuring out what I wanted to do and finding my passion and living in a place that I loved and working where the time just passed by. And then finally having a New York Times bestselling book and then getting pregnant and going, uh-oh, now what? And so most men don't have to say that, right?
Absolutely.
And so my husband actually said to me, well, now that you're pregnant, you're going to stay home, right? And I said, absolutely not. I've been working for 6 years for like $2 an hour, living on top ramen, trying to like negotiate toner from the toner companies just to create a manuscript. There's no way I'm going to walk away from this. It's finally happening. And so I had to learn how to navigate, how to raise a family, how to get through that guilt and that overwhelm, how to ask for help, how to realize that maybe I wasn't going to be the one with my kids all the time, and hire a nanny who is today the most amazing person on the planet and 40, and says, even my nanny says to me, if it wasn't for, I think she started working for me when she was 19. She was lost. She didn't know what she wanted to do. She was very unhealthy. She had no dreams, no vision. Today, she runs a company. She does triathlons. She's in great shape. She's got the life of her dreams. And she says, if it wasn't for you cheering me on and really sitting me down when I needed to be sat down and telling me, get rid of this guy, or give yourself permission to be treated better, or do this or do that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so I see that today, but at the time, you struggle. I'll never forget flying on a plane. It wasn't a plane, it was actually a jet. And I was flying to a book signing. And I felt so guilty. My husband was upset. I was in New York and I was flying to another signing, and he was saying, you should be home. And I realized in that moment, Ellie, I can't be everything to everybody all the time. But what I can do is I can give myself permission to be present where I am in the moment and enjoy where I am in the moment. Because what was happening for me is I wasn't enjoying my success. When I was at home, I thought I should be at work. When I was at work, I thought I should be at home. And I was sort of missing both of my lives.
Yeah.
I felt like a double agent, you know.
Yeah. And I think so many women can relate to that, right? So many women out in the workforce feel exactly what you just described, where when they're at work, they feel guilty for not being at home. When they're at home, they feel guilty for not being at work. And I think with the pandemic in particular, and now so many people working from home, those lines are even more blurred.
They are. They are. But it's not about quantity. It's about quality. I don't care if it's a diamond or if it's time with your husband or your kids or your employees or the project you're working on. It's really about giving yourself permission to focus on whatever is really important in that moment. And, my boys, I just celebrated my youngest son's 24th birthday. My oldest son is 27. And I found out I was pregnant with my 27-year-old, right when Chicken Soup started to take off. And they're both amazing kids. And yes, they drove an hour and a half to the office with me and an hour and a half back in their car seats. And yes, I nursed them on my desk while I was typing a story. And yes, the UPS man walked in every now and then and went, it all happened.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my youngest son. I took him to Book Expo of America, and he was just about 3 or 4 months old. And my aunt came with me, and she was walking Chandler in a stroller through Book Expo, and I was signing books. And Sophia Loren came up and said, "Give me the baby." I have a picture of Chandler and Sophia Loren. But I said to my youngest not too long ago, I said, "Chandler, was it like that I wasn't there? Because I really feel like I wasn't." And he said, "Mom, anybody could have taken me to practice. Dad came to all my games. You came to the games that you could, but no one could have showed me how to live my purpose and my passion the way you did. You lived your passion. And that's not something you can tell someone. That's only something that you can show someone. And I'm grateful for that." And so it was nice to hear, because you never know as they're growing up and they're sitting in a swing watching The Lion King.
Yeah.
Is he therapy in 20 years?
You wonder, am I doing the right thing? And I hear from so many women, and I'm sure you do as well, that struggle with the guilt. We touched on it earlier, when you're at work feeling guilty for not being at home, when you're at home feeling guilty for not being at work. And I think just the constant guilt of, am I present enough? Am I loving enough? Am I supportive enough? Am I holding the boundaries enough? I think as women in particular, we have that dialogue of enough. Am I enough? Is it enough? Am I doing a good enough job? And so I really love that your program, your books, everything that you do about Permission Granted, because a big takeaway that I've had from it is not only giving yourself permission to do the things, to be the person, to show up as you want to show up, but also the permission to know with every fiber of your being that you are more than enough.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think that anybody ever gets that completely. I don't think anybody does. I think if we did, we'd all be on a beach someplace sipping pina coladas. But I do think that with awareness comes choice. And so when you're having those thoughts, it's okay to be like, okay, wait a second. I'm there. I get to choose. Do I want to go down the rabbit hole, or do I want to support the story that's going to support my future? And so lots of times when I have a bad story that's sort of taking me down the wrong path, I have to give myself permission to reframe that story.
Yeah.
And that takes work, and it takes time to create that. I think limiting beliefs are bad habits. They're just bad thoughts. Yeah. And so in my mind, it's really more about noticing it, acknowledging it, not beating yourself up, and moving on. And so it's kind of like going to the gym. If I could go once and have a hard body, I would completely do that.
Yeah.
Really just not possible. We have to keep on doing the things to keep expanding our mind, growing ourselves, transforming. I use an analogy a lot in my workshops. Have you ever microwaved a turkey? No, it's not like a rubber duck, right? You
Right.
have to bake it over time. And just like that, transformation, life, it's a journey. It's not a destination. And so it's so important to give yourself permission to enjoy your successes and take the time. And in today's world, it's very difficult because there's so much coming at us from so many different angles. There's so much social media, and there's your phones and the internet. I mean, in my day, when we first started, there was a fax machine, and
Right.
we were down in LA, so we were very close to FedEx, so I could print the manuscripts and run to, in the middle of the night to FedEx to ship something out. But you didn't have as many distractions, and you didn't have as many comparisons. And so in today's world, there's so much going on with women comparing themselves, young women comparing themselves, girls getting anorexia because they're not skinny enough, they're not this enough, they're not pretty enough. And it's sad. And so to be out there as women and remind all women that if we're beautiful from the inside out, that's the vibration that we want to hold. And that's the vibration we want to hold in our thoughts and our behaviors and everything else. And I know I've been working with you for years, and you have continued to persevere and give yourself permission to go the extra mile and the extra mile and the extra mile, never give up. And things don't happen overnight. And I think in this world, it looks like, oh, you're famous. And I remember hearing that early on, like, oh my gosh, you guys just came out of nowhere. No, we didn't. It was 4 years of knocking on doors and making phone calls and selling books out of the back of my Dodge Colt at swap meets and doing crazy things. But I did the work. And I was lucky because I did have two amazing transformational leaders in my world. They're almost like two crazy dads. One was really grounded. One was like, believe it's possible, kid, fake it till you make it. The sky's the limit. I mean, Mark was crazy insane, but I got half of a crazy brain and I got half of that teacher logical brain from the two of them, which is such a blessing. At the time it was a little crazy that we had our days. I did an interview yesterday with the guy from Disney, and I said, it's sort of like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Absolutely. So for people who are new on their journey, who don't have the mentors that you have, who don't have the mentors that I have, and they're listening and they're thinking, well, I would like to exercise that muscle, or I would like to persevere, or I would like to give myself permission, but I don't know how. That sounds great, but I'm new at this and I don't know where to start. What would you say to them to develop that habit or to train the muscle? What's a good place for them to start?
Well, they could start with permission granted, for sure. Start with any kind of program. Get into a circle with other people that are like-minded, that want to grow themselves. Not everybody does. I mean, the first time I ever found out about this world of self-help at all, I was working in technology, and it was really a man's world. And the people I was working for were not fun to work with. And as a woman, I was sort of supposed to be seen and not heard, which meant I was in HR all the time in trouble because I can't keep my mouth shut. So find a group and find some, we have something called Goal Friends. Feel free to check out goalfriends.com. It's goal instead of girl friends. So goalfriends.com. That's a great program. That's a 12-month program. It's very inexpensive. You can buy 10 or 12 workbooks and get a group of women together, create your bucket list, figure out what you want, get the support that you need. That's a very inexpensive program.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about Goal Friends.
So Goal Friends originated about 10 years ago in Raleigh, North Carolina with my partner, Darlene Whitehurst. And she had concocted, she's amazing. And so she has this whole philosophy of success. She's been studying neuroscience. She studied everybody from the 70s on. And she had this program called Women in Wine on Wednesdays. And they would meet once a month on a Wednesday, and people would bring wine and they would bring food, kind of like a little home party. Yeah. And then she realized, well, not everybody drinks wine. And it was really all about goals. So she rebranded it Goal Friends. And with that, there's the philosophy of success. And she says, if you don't like it, give it a golectomy. I mean, everything's kind of fun. And she's so creative and so fun. And I met her. She came to one of my luxury retreats in Maui, probably, 8 or 9 years ago. And she walked in with her little book, and she had her high heels on and her outfit. And in Hawaii, you don't wear shoes in the house. And I said, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to take your pumps off because, our floors are wood and they could dent. And she says, but this is an outfit. I said, you have to take your shoes off. She said, when I took my pumps off, you almost took my power away. But then I see this notebook that she had. I said, what is that? And she said, it's this girlfriends program. I said, that is amazing. I said, when you're ready to really launch, I'll be here to support you. And she owned an ad agency and she wasn't really ready. And we became dear friends right off the bat. And I became the chief visionary officer and have been championing her along for the last 10 years, which has been interesting. She's a little bit of a control freak sometimes. Everything has to be perfect. And but today we're in prisons in Virginia, and we're certifying women in prison to get their PhD. They've never got a high school diploma. They've never got a college diploma. And so instead of a PhD, we're getting them a PhD. So it's been fascinating how the same work, wherever it is, and the same goes for the work that I've done all my life. We've been in prisons, we've been in corporate, we've worked with women, we worked with all kinds of people across the board. But that's been really, really rewarding to see that population really grow. But it's also available for the mass market, and it's someplace to start. And so and also one of the things that I really suggest people do is go online and Google, different people, whether it's you or me or Lisa Nichols or Marcy Shimoff or Mary Morrissey or any of the women in transformation, and see what vibrates with you. What are you attracted to? I always use the example of The Secret. They were all kind of saying the same thing, but they all said it a little bit differently. So when you can find that vibration that fits your energy, follow that, research it, and get involved. And don't expect everybody else, if you're new, to jump on board with you. My family thought I was nuts. My best friends were like, what are you doing? You left this job to go work on this weird thing with this guy who's kind of a hippie. And my father was like, what? I sent you to business school. You're working for a hippie. So, the hippie went to Harvard, and I got a Harvard education for sure. And I was put into the soil and planted in a place where I could really grow. And so I truly believe that if you have anything inside of you that says, I know I want more, I just don't know if I deserve it, I'm telling you now, you do. Yeah. You absolutely do. If you have that little tiny thing nagging at you saying, there's got to be more to this, how can I grow? Don't let anything stop you, because you're put on this planet for a reason, and you do have a path, and it will get more clear the more you really own and honor that path. And I think a lot of people ignore those little yearnings of wanting more. And I think one of the biggest things is a lot of us feel selfish when we want more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the feeling of selfishness for wanting more, for believing that we deserve more, for believing that we can have more, that goes part and parcel with the guilt for being a working mom, the guilt for building your own empire, the guilt for not having dinner ready, all of these things that come together. And it all ties so beautifully back into this work that you do with permission granted. You have permission, you give yourself permission to want more, do more, be more, have more.
And ask for more, ask for help. I mean, and it was probably 1995 and my mom was first diagnosed with cancer. And my sister happened to be working with me. And she was reading stories for us because stories were coming in the droves. And she was studying for her nursing degree. And she said, why don't we do a book, Chicken Soup for the Surviving Soul for Mom? I don't know if I've told you the story, but the first words out of my mouth were, why would the guys let us do a book? We work here. Yeah. My sister looked at me and she said, Patty, why wouldn't they say yes to you? You have been here before. You were there before Mark was there. You were there before the idea was even born. If anybody deserves it, you do. And so I went into that, we had this conference room. We were in Culver City down by LAX in California, and was so nervous. And I went in and I said, we want to do this book. And I kind of blurted it out, and they looked at each other and said, that's a great idea. And that was it. And so I was almost going to take myself out of the game before the coach put me on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. To stay open to possibilities and to ask.
Absolutely.
It's so powerful. Ask for the support you need. Ask for the resources you need. Ask for the help that you need. So you are a huge champion for women. And we've talked a lot about permission granted. We've talked a lot about girlfriends. We've talked about really the importance of putting yourself into proximity with people that see you and support you and celebrate you, people who are like-minded and that are also learning and growing and developing. So talk to us a little bit about how you really create the communities that you mentor, because you pour your heart and soul and you're a master connector, and everybody that you come in contact with feels seen and heard and celebrated and wants to join your communities. So tell us a little bit about that secret sauce for really being present.
Well, I think, I grew up with a father who was in sales and marketing, and he always said to me, never burn a bridge and, treat people how you want to be treated. And I really did that. And I love to serve. My brain is crazy, and growing up in the world of having to survive and not coming from a lot, I had to look at every problem and look at, well, for every obstacle, there's an opportunity. So what is it? It gets me excited, actually, which is kind of strange for most people. So when I meet people, I try to be more interested in them than interesting. Sometimes my son has to even remind me of that. And so when I look at what other people are doing and I get out into the world and I go to different things and I find out what they're doing and what are they struggling with, and is there a way that I can serve them? And I give a lot away, and I don't leave my communities behind. And I think a lot of people just kind of burn and churn through people. And I think it's really important to nurture the relationships you have and to think about how can you serve them. And when we're coming from a place of service, people feel it and it comes back. I'm a huge believer in tithing. I've tithed my whole life, 10% of everything we've ever made. And I think it's come back tenfold. And I think that that same currency is in relationships. And so it's more about really looking at not trying to enroll people in your agenda, but how can you help others forward their agenda? And when you come from that space, you're not scary, you're not icky, you're really open. I'm very transparent. I try to be as authentic as I can, and I'm available. I try to make myself available for my communities whenever I can. I've done it very organically. I'm not a big media person that's out there on Facebook and Instagram and doing all kinds of things. I really believe in looking around who is right there in front of you. And I say to a lot of my clients, don't quit your day job necessarily, but you can go learn something new and bring it back to the people that are in your life. And so if you do that, a lot of people run away to go get transformation, and then they go home and they feel like they can't have it there. But I want to give them permission to be the light in their own community, to grow this light to be even bigger. And we need it now more than ever.
So you are such a giver. You pour into people, you're present, you are open. How do you refill your own cup? Self-care is so critical. What's your self-care practice?
Netflix. It's weird. It's if I'm not busy, I feel more drained. When I'm busy and I'm serving someone else, or I'm coming on and supporting you doing this or whatever it is, that really fills me up. But other than that, I have a house in Santa Barbara. I live right by the beach. I go for beach walks. I take my dog down there. I try to meditate as much as I can. The older I get, the more I realize when I don't meditate, bad things happen. And I eat well, so it's just depending on, through the decades, we have our different outlets. Probably in my 30s, it was like, let's go out and party on Friday night. My 40s kind of got like, this isn't really not very attractive. My 50s, like, all right, it's time to be yogi. So it's different for everyone. And I have a couple really amazing close friends who know how hard I work and are always, I just came home from one of my best friends, and she made me lunches and dinners every night, and, brought in a chef one evening, and we had this amazing meal and celebrated her mother's birthday, who I've known forever. And so I'm very mindful about who's around me. And I'm really mindful of making sure that those that I keep in my inner circle are very supportive and nurturing.
That's so powerful. So really being mindful of the intake, right? Being mindful of who is in your circle and being present, tying back to really being present to what you need, what aligns with what you've got going on and prioritizing yourself, giving yourself permission to put yourself first or to fill your own cup without needing to rely on someone else to pour into you.
Absolutely. And I think too, I always say to people, we already have an inner critic that talks to, like, are you sure you're good enough? Are you sure? I don't need anybody on the outside. I do a darn good job all by myself. So I need people around me that are saying, no, you can do this. You've got this. Let's do it. And I'm pretty strategic. It's interesting because I'm very big picture. And what I've noticed over the years is I really have two very, very best friends, and they're both very detail oriented. They're very, very structured. And I walk into their homes, I'm like, this for me, it's like being in a spa. And so I've learned to give myself permission to not be everything to all people. Yep. I've learned that my brain is more of a visionary and that I need other people that are more linear to help me. I've learned to give myself permission to appreciate the differences in myself and in others, which is a huge lesson that I wish I could have learned 3 decades ago. But, we all come into this world with different gifts, and when we can learn how to bring them together and be able to lean on each other and support each other, we get so much more out of it. It's just I think we grow up in our lives and going to school, and it's like, you have to be good in every subject and you have to do it by yourself. And it's not the Montessori method. Montessori is all about the whole world and helping each other and supportive. And that's not the typical education we receive. And so it's much more competitive than it is collaborative. And I've had to learn that I want to live in a collaborative world, not a competitive world.
And you do such an amazing job of being collaborative and of connecting other women, helping other women collaborate, saying, hey, you need to talk to this person and you need to get with that person, and let's go further together. Let's impact more lives together. Let's shine our light more brightly and powerfully out into the world together. And here, take my hand and let me help you. And it's a joy and it's an inspiration to see. And I know not only that I look up to you, but I know that so many other women do as well. And we aspire to be like you, particularly in that aspect of a connector, a collaborator, a champion, a cheerleader, of being so present. Because in today's world, with so much going on, you really do make sure every single person is seen and heard and feels the connection. You show up fully aligned, fully open, and completely present in all of your interactions. And it is truly a model for how we could all be. So I appreciate that. And you mentioned earlier that even you have that little inner voice, that little critic that comes up. And so for someone newer on their journey who is really struggling with that, where that voice is pretty consistent and is speaking to them quite loudly, what is something that you can suggest to them, a step that they can take to begin to silence their inner critic or acknowledge it or work through it?
Well, I think just acknowledge that it's new, and so it's going to be uncomfortable, and that's just noise. And so if it was just noise and you could have anything you wanted, what would it look like? And I would say get a vision board or go to mindmovies.com and create a mind movie and start to dream bigger and really look at don't think about the how, just think about what it is that you'd like to dream about having or doing or being. And get it down on paper, put it on a vision board, look at it every day, share your vision out loud with other people. It's so important. I think a lot of us, we have these dreams inside, but we never let them out. And the more you let them out, the bigger the dreams get, the more people start to ask questions, the more clarity you start to have around that dream. Then someone shows up and says, hey, can I help you? I was on the soccer field at my son's game. He was in 6th grade, and thankfully it was right around the corner from the office. So I ditched out of the office and said, hey, I'm going to JT soccer field. And so I went, and one of the fathers happened to be there, and he said, hey, what are y'all working on? And I said, well, we're working on this vision board. We just, the secret just came out, and we see these vision boards and they look like ransom notes. And I want to create a beautiful vision board so people can have something that they can be proud of in their living room. And he said, well, if you want to do that, I'd love to do an infomercial around that. And I would fund the whole thing. And I literally had an infomercial deal in an hour, and it was $1 million deal. And I spent 2 years with one of the dads on my son's soccer team working through this, who funded the entire thing. And to this day, we're great friends, and we've done other amazing things together. And had I just said, oh, nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
And so the more you share your vision, the more real it gets. And the more uncomfortable you become, the more you start to embody that vision, own it. Yes, some people will laugh and say, oh, that's stupid. So what? Some will, some won't. Doesn't matter. Just go on to the next person. I think what happens for a lot of us is we have one failure, or we don't complete something, or we don't complete a lot of things. And that really sort of just chips away at our self-esteem. And so what we need to do is just, up until my friend Lila Larson, who's probably 70 something, says to me, I want you to remember this phrase, up until now.
Yeah.
So up until now, I wasn't willing to give myself permission, but I am today. And every day is a new day. And so again, just acknowledge that those feelings are normal. Everybody says, Seth Godin says in one of his blogs, we all have two voices in our head. It's up to us to choose the one that takes us into our future. And so we have a voice that says, I want to do this. And we have a voice that says, am I worthy? Choose the want, forget the how for now, share your vision. Everybody wants to help, but we have to give them the opportunity to help. And so the more you share, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, absolutely. Just using your voice and sharing your excitement, sharing your dreams, sharing your vision. Excitement is contagious.
Absolutely. And again, I cannot say this enough. It's going to feel like an out-of-body experience if you're just starting out. It's going to feel like you're a fraud. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel woo-woo. It's going to feel whatever it feels. Just allow the feelings. Again, because if you have that little thing saying, I need to do this, it's time. And for me, as someone who thinks pretty big, I have those moments of, oh my gosh, I have this idea. And I've had a lot of ideas along the way where people have said, you're crazy, it's not going to work. And I just go back into my own little office and get out my giant flipboard, which you've seen. And I look at, well, if it was possible, what would it look like and how would it unfold? And sometimes I bring in some people that are a little bit more linear than me or strategic, but are still not afraid of my big, crazy dreams. And we map it out. And I always tell people, map out on paper what you want that vision to look like. You would never just jump in your car if you're in Los Angeles and say, I'm going to go to New York. I don't know how much gas I need. I don't know how many snacks I need. I don't know what freeways I need to take. The more clarity and time you spend on really giving yourself permission to unpack that dream and asking other people, hey, I want to get here. Do you have any advice on how to do that? Ask other people that have been where you're going and get that feedback, map it out, have the clarity, share it more, and then it will just start to kind of slowly unfold. And again, I can't drive to New York from Santa Barbara overnight. It's going to take stops and days. I might have to ask for directions. I most likely will have to ask for directions. Thank God for Google Maps at this point in my life. But if you just stay on the road, you'll get to your destination. And then that destination will just be a stop. And then you'll have something else that will show up. And so when we're open, if we give ourselves permission to be open and not so closed-minded into, I can only do it this way, other things do appear. I mean, so much has shown up in my life when I'm in the space of just being present, letting go of old stories, having very high intention about my dreams, but low attachment, and staying curious and asking. And there's ups and downs for sure. And the other thing I say to people is, if you get up in the morning and you're all just like ready to go and you're really inspired and you get in the shower and you have an idea, get out of the shower and act on that idea. Because my 9 o'clock in the morning ideas feel like insanity by 5 p.m. So do it while you're still in the zone, while you do the scary things first, while you still have the energy to do it. And I think a lot of people, they have their day jobs or they're working with their kids and they try to do this stuff at night. I say, wake up an hour earlier, have your own quiet time, start to create your own sort of practice in the morning to get you grounded, whether it's, meditation or affirmations or writing out a vision for whatever part of life it is that you want to work on, and then go for it. And pick one thing at a time. Give yourself permission to say, I can't do it all. I'm not going to be rich. I'm not going to be skinny. I'm not going to be this all at once. I'm going to focus on my family for the month, or I'm going to focus on my health for the month, or I'm going to focus on my business for a month. It's very difficult to try to do all these different things. And if we put too much together, we'll probably drop the ball, and then what we say to ourselves is, see, you did it again.
Yeah.
So don't set yourself up, like, baby steps.
Yeah. One thing at a time, I think, is so important. Chunking it down. And what am I going to do in this moment that's going to move the needle toward my dreams? Or what am I going to do in this moment with my kids? Or what am I going to do in this moment with my spouse? But one step at a time, one thing at a time, all moving the needle. And I think one thing you said is super important to highlight, because so many people are early in their journey and they've been pivoting or feeling overwhelmed or feeling isolated, there's been a lot going on over these last 2 years. And so one of the things that you touched on is, well, if it was possible, what would it look like? If I could have it, what would it look like? And staying open to that, giving yourself permission to dream. I think a lot of people, particularly over the last 2 years, may have forgotten how to dream.
Absolutely. And also, what would I have to look like? What would I have to feel like? What would I have to act like? Step into that new suit. And I say act as if, and it's going to, again, it will feel weird. But the more you start to create those habits that will help support you to get there, the sooner it will happen. And I think for a lot of us, we have that dream, and then we have that thing going, am I really good enough? And so you have these two vibrations sort of arguing in your own body. And so it's so important to focus on what you do want and just stay there. I mean, I quote Oprah all the time. She says, if I have a bad thought for more than 17 seconds, I know it will come true. So there's there's no value in focusing on what you don't want to have to happen. I always say have plan B, but focus 95% of your time on, if it were possible, what would it look like in planning it? It's just like if you're going to plan a vacation, you don't just jump on a plane and not know where it's going. You call your travel agent, or you go online and you look at the places that you want to go, and you check out the different hotels and what restaurants are there and what do we want to do for dinners and where do we want to go for excursions. You're dreaming about this. It's a vacation, and your life can be a vacation too, if you're willing to let it.
Wow. If you're willing to let it. So powerful. Anything is possible if we're open and we do the work and give ourselves permission to dream and act and align and seek support and ask, and all the things that we have talked about so far today. Anything is possible.
True. And I think the biggest thing that I would say to anyone is give yourself permission to be you, not the person that you think other people want you to be, not the person that you try to show up as when you first meet your first boyfriend or your first husband and you're perfect. Just, truth in packaging, be you. And when you're your authentic self, people will love you for who you are. And I have a really close friend, and she says, Patty, no matter who you try to be, you're going to be judged. So just show up as you. It's much more scalable.
Just be you. Show up as you.
Yeah. Because I think we overdo it so often, and we try to be something we're not to be accepted. And so when you give yourself permission just to be your full self and all the different parts of you, and let people love you for that, there's no hiding, there's no faking. And it's easier. At the end of the day, it's easier. Permission. Okay, here's my phone. I give myself permission to be perfectly imperfect by Ellie Shefi. I have this on my phone to remind me every day that I'm perfectly imperfect.
So for someone who is experiencing a rough time and they are feeling quite imperfect and like the walls are caving in, and they're not quite believing to the point where they're believing that it's okay to be perfectly imperfect. What is a tip that you can give them to be able to get back up when they feel that life is knocking them down?
I would say go on YouTube and watch, transformational videos, read a book about becoming who you want to be, whether it's happy for no reason, permission granted, anything at all that is in that realm. Get your head back out of, this space and do something. Get up, clean your office, make your bed, clean out a kitchen drawer, shift your energy, do something different. Call someone and tell them how grateful you are to have them in their lives, in your life. And think about, go into the place of gratitude. I left my friends this last weekend, and every time I get home, I send her a care package from Amazon for my guest room that I always have. I noticed there wasn't this kind of brush, or you needed extra toothbrushes for people if they came to stay, or, whatever it was, just do something that you wouldn't do to shift it. And so when you start to look, this is not serving me, let me go do something. Let me write a letter to someone who did something good for me in my life. And if you can't think of anything, watch a funny video. I mean, you just have to shift that energy, because like attracts like. And so when you're down, it's going to feel heavier. And so you got to get out of it. Go for a walk, call a good friend, do something. And again, we've all been in a major rut for 2 years. It's not easy. I know for me, I run a lot of mastermind groups. And so when the pandemic hit, I told my team, I'm going to run all my groups. I had 6 or 8 groups every week for the next year. And I normally do them once a month. And they said, every week, are you crazy? I said, you know what? I need to get out of this space, and I need to be in service mode, because if I'm not, I'm going to go crazy, and I'm afraid they're going to go crazy. And so when I let them know that we're going to meet weekly, they were so excited. I was excited. We were all working together. It was, everybody was winning.
Get into service, shift your state. So powerful.
Yeah. And again, it's not easy. And just remind yourself, I've heard that. It's not easy, but it's just a choice. It's just take the action in the moment and do it.
So as we start to wind down here today, let's imagine that you are coming to the end of your life best lived. You have left it all on the table. It has been a life of service. It has been a life of joy and a life of love and laughter and giving yourself permission to be you and do all the things. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want them to say about you?
That I was authentic, transparent, and loved them for exactly who they were, and never expect them to be anything different than their true self.
And so it is. You are offering some amazing programs and showing up so powerfully. What else do you have coming up?
Well, one of the things I'm really passionate about is working with authors and speakers and people that want to get into this field and train more. And what I've realized, Ellie, is that so many of them dive in but don't have a roadmap. And so I've created a new program called the Attractor Factor. And it's all about how to attract, using your own vibration, the ideal client, but also learning about who your ideal client is and crafting your message in a way that will resonate with them, and giving you a roadmap from A to Z, so you know what to do in what order. I find that a lot of people in this industry just sort of jump in anywhere in the middle. And I use the analogy a lot that if I was going to build a house, I wouldn't just go to my builder and say, just start with the bathroom. I'd go to my architect and we'd create a blueprint for everything. We'd budget it all out. We'd look at the costs. Then I'd go to my interior designer and I'd have her look at where the beds are going to go. And I'd have a complete picture. And then I take it to a builder. And so what I find a lot with my clients is they miss the architect and the interior designer, and they just go to a builder and get lost. And so my hope and my dream is to save a lot of people from spending a lot of money with lack of clarity and lack of success. And I think it's going to be an amazing program.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to be there. And I know so many others will be there as well. So where can we find out more information about the attractor factor?
Again, you'd have to opt into pattyaubery.com and you will get some information about that. But it's on the website, and we will be sending out more information in April.
Wonderful. I look forward to receiving it.
Thank you.
So how can people connect with you, and how can they find out more about Permission Granted?
They can go to my website at pattyaubery.com, and that's PATTYAUBERY.com, and find out more information. Just opt in and I'll let you know all the different things we're doing. But most of the programs are for women, and it's about permission granted. It's about getting together and masterminding and doing fun trips and all kinds of things. So if you opt in, you'll know what's happening. We typically send something out monthly saying this is what's coming up, just so you know. You won't be getting a lot of emails from me because I don't like a lot of emails, so I'm not going to send a lot of emails. But if you're interested in finding out more, feel free to opt in there.
Any last parting words or thoughts for our audience today?
I would say that my friend Ayan Levinsant said to me once, you almost don't need to give yourself permission, because God gave you permission when you were conceived. And whatever comes out of your mouth is what you create. So be mindful of your words and ask for help. Tell the truth. Be graceful if you can, which isn't always easy. And honor your true self and give yourself permission to be honest about what life looks like for you, what's working, what's not working, and speak up and show up. And people will be there to help you and support you along the way.
Powerful. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for the way that you show up in the world, for the work that you do, for the love and care that you show myself and so many others. You are a gift and a treasure, and I am so grateful to call you not only a mentor, but a friend and a sister.
Thank you. I feel the same. I really appreciate it. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of You Are Not Your Scars. Be sure to implement the tools and strategies shared today as you create a limitless life. Know that you are worthy, you are resilient, you are unbreakable, and you are unstoppable. Find more episodes of this podcast at youarenotyourScarsPodcast.com. While you may have been forged by fire, you are free by design.